I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of March. Oh, it's lovely out here today. The sun's shining, the helicopters are as noisy as ever, the sky is blue, and I've just seen my first peacock butterfly. Hurrah! I've seen a few brimstones before now, but this is my first peacock. So that's rather a treat. Anyway, welcome to another Colganology. Well, I'm back from Cornwall. The weather's being lovely today, although we have had a couple of days of rain, and I'm out and about looking for signs of spring, and they are everywhere. It's all looking deliciously bosky, walking up through these little wooded paths, and oh god, the ground is green with bluebell shoots. This is going to be beautiful in a few weeks' time. I don't know how early the bluebells are going to be this year. As you might have seen in a previous video, they're already out in Cornwall, which is mad. When I was a boy, we always used to associate bluebells with May and May Day. Now in March, they're already out here. Well, they're a little bit behind yet. There's no sign of a bluebell yet, but all this greenery, well, apart from the lords and ladies, all this greenery you can see here, this is all bluebells. And this is going to be wonderful as always. Well, bless my soul, an early contender for first bluebell of the year, around here anyway. There's one, look. It's not open yet, but that is the first bluebell I've seen in this part of Buckinghamshire in March. This is madness. Just the one, mind. Nothing else here. Lots of new life coming up on what looks like dead sticks. This is elder, and always amazes me, elder. It always looks like it's dead. You know, the trees all look like they're old and rotten and covered in moss, and then every year without fail, lots and lots of new growth coming up on them. Oh, here's a pretty little spring flower coming up. This is stitchwort, Stellaria, I think its actual name is. I can never remember which one's greater stitchwort and which one's lesser stitchwort. I think this is greater, but I might be wrong. But yeah, lots of that coming up now all over the place. Oh, a new tree. That's always nice to see. What is it, I wonder? Let's have a look. Looks a bit like an acer or a maple or something like that. Does it tell us on the label? Oh, Acer rubrum. Yes, it's a red acer. Oh, that's going to be gorgeous when that comes out. Won't take too long either. They grow very quickly, acers. Fabulous. Love a new tree. Just look how much pollen there is on all of these willows here. They're almost yellow with pollen. Look at that. Loads and loads and loads of it. I'll keep the early bees and butterflies happy. First blossom on the bird cherry trees. Lovely. They're all starting to open up now on this bird cherry. Look how beautiful those buds are. They've planted a whole grove of little beech trees here, and they're all in leaf now. I mentioned in my last video, before the Cornwall videos, about how the blackthorn has the flowers first and then the leaf, and the hawthorn has the leaf first and then the flowers. Well, this is the hawthorn. As you can see, it's very, very green. Lots and lots of leaf at the moment. Whereas over there, you can see the blackthorn is all white flowers, but no leaves. Well, the leaves are just starting to come now. But these are interesting, actually. These little hawthorn leaves used to be known as bread and cheese because they're edible while they're small, and they actually don't have a bad flavour. And I won't say they're the most exciting thing to eat, but they're quite tasty. A lot of people don't realise that young bramble leaves are actually edible and quite tasty. When young rabbits are weaned one of the first things they look for when they come out of their burrows for the first time is the what we call the salad leaves, the young bramble leaves, because they're nutritious, tasty, juicy. I'm going to have one now. How do I describe them? They've got a faintly, it's hard to describe. There's an almost sort of perfumey taste. There's a little bit of a sort of bitter taste as well. Almost a little bit mushroomy. They're not quite like anything else, but really quite tasty. As part of a salad, you know, as an extra salad leaf, especially if it had been chilled, that would be quite pleasant. When you think about the privations that our remote ancestors used to suffer back in the day, you know, an entire family crammed into one room, huddled round a fire throughout the whole of winter, hoping they've laid up enough food and fuel to survive. This time of year, when they entered the light half of the year, must have been like a smorgasbord. It must have been phenomenal. There's so many edible plants growing wild around the UK. And yeah, there's some of the things, you know, like bramble leaves and hawthorn leaves and things like that, that maybe most modern British people would never touch. But for our ancestors, you know, having lived off dried supplies and sort of smoked meats and biltong sort of thing throughout the winter, to suddenly have this influx of fresh green vegetables, I mean, it must have been absolutely astonishingly good. And we know that taste buds were different to ours these days. We become more accustomed to sweet taste because we've had access to sugar for 200, 300 years. They didn't have that, you know, so consequently they would let crab apples during the winter and eat crab apples. Most people eating a crab apple now will go because it's so bitter, but for them, you know, it kept them alive. And they probably, as I said, had slightly different taste buds to us because they hadn't been trained on all the sugar and stuff that we have now. But yeah, this time of year must have seemed like the most wonderful time of year. I mean, there were eggs in the hedgerows because the birds are starting to lay eggs now. That's all protein. All these young birds and young animals are emerging. More protein. There's fish in the stream, crayfish in the stream. And of course, there's no more breaking ice on the tops of ponds and frozen ground that's hard to plant your seeds in. Glorious, glorious time of year. No wonder they celebrated it with big festivals, you know, to celebrate the coming of the spring. And once we get into sort of late April, May, the festivals become even bigger. You know, May Day obviously being one of the biggest. Great time of year. Great time of year. I do like daffodils. I mean, they're lovely and bright and colourful. And they just start to bring the landscape back to life as spring settles in. Our ancestors noted that there were lots of yellow flowers that started to emerge in the spring, and then as we moved from spring into summer, you know, your lesser celandines, your dandelions, your goat's beards, your primroses, your daffodils, and they used to pick them in bunches and hang them around their houses to bring the summer into their houses to sort of please the sun god. I rather like that, I really do. I've puzzled about this before. Why is it some oak trees keep all their leaves even though they're brown and shriveled up, while other oak trees right next to them lose all of them? Curious, isn't it? I have no idea why. Come on! Can't tell when the weather's nice, he just doesn't want to go home. Goes into super slow mode. And once you get the lead on him, he makes himself heavy. You know, you virtually got to drag him. You coming home or not? Good boy. Well, that's it for another episode. Thank you for joining me. If you like what you see here, please like, please subscribe, and I'll keep doing them. But in the meantime, I'll say have a great week and toodle pip.